I'm going to show you what I use to make the cheese and how I make the cheese. And today we'll be making the third edition of Butterkäse. First, before I get to that, some people have given me comments, and in fact that's why I'm making this video, is someone said it'd be really neat if you could show us how you make the cheese. So here we are. And here's some other comments. Dear Jill, I have a suggestion for you. When talking about a cheese like Wensleydale, perhaps say what sort of cheese it is, or what it's kind of like. We're all familiar with cheddar, Swiss, etc., and could kind of imagine a butter cheese, and could really see what it looked like, if not what it tasted like when you made grilled cheese. But a Wensleydale is unfamiliar, to me at least. So I will try to remember to do that. Let's see, today, Butterkäse, it's a soft, buttery, melty cheese. I would put it more like a Munster, very soft, and it has a mild flavor. It doesn't have a sharp flavor. Another comment I got was, I wanted to say the cheese looked beautiful, the Wensleydale, and all I could think of was Wallace and Gromit and him talking about Wensleydale. The final shots were really a nice ending to the video, and I thought you should add some shots of what you look at when you thoughtfully look away. So, I can do that for you. This is what I see when I'm trying to imagine how to tell you what the cheese tastes like. So that's it for notes. And now let's look at the stuff you need to make cheese. Okay, so you'll need a cheese press. This is a homemade one. It's got a base, just some long screws and a board, and then you put weights on top of it. You need cheesecloth to wrap the cheese up in, and a cheese mold. This is my 6-pound cheese mold. And then it will go underneath here with a fowler. This is called a fowler. You put the cheese in here and you put it on top there and put it in the press and squeeze the whey out. So cheesecloth, I use a colander to drain, a stirring spoon, a spoon with slotted holes to blend the fat that's in the milk on top. This is what I use to cut the curds with. If you watch Gavin Weber's videos, he has this really cool wooden cheese curd cutter. It just, you put it in, and it's got like these horizontal bars on it. What are those? Metal wires, and you just put it in the milk and twist it, and you're done. Cheese mats to rest the cheese on when it's done, when you're airing it to dry. You need a thermometer, a good thermometer. I have my big 6-gallon pot because today I'm going to be making a 5-gallon Butterkäse. Cheese salt. So this is my third try at the Butterkäse. The first one was just plain. The second one, I wanted to copy a local store-bought one that said they use enzymes, and lipase is an enzyme, and it's what you use to give an Italian kind of taste to the cheese. My second Butterkäse, which will be opening up next week, and you'll see that video next time, I added too much lipase. I think I added enough to make like a Parmesan cheese, and I just wanted a little taste. So I'm going to make another one with just a little bit of lipase. I also, if you use store-bought milk, you use calcium chloride to make sure you get firm curds. And I use single-strength animal rennet, and that makes the curds firm. That turns the milk into curds, which you then cut and then squish into cheese. So my first step is I have to sanitize all this. All the metal stuff I just put in the pot and boil, and I use Star San, a sanitizer, and I put like the mold in here, the cheese mold in here. You mix it in with some water. Plus, you need some, for this cheese, thermophilic culture. Thermophilic culture gives it the cheese flavor. And the thermophilic, there's mesophilic and thermophilic. The mesophilic is for cheeses that you heat up to a low degree, and the thermophilic are for cheeses that you heat up to a higher degree. So, let's make some cheese. So I'm just gonna reiterate that sanitizing is very important for making cheese. So now that everything's sanitized, you can add the milk. And I'm using a double boiler. This milk was frozen with some ice chunks coming out. This is actually raw milk, and since the Buddha-Käse only ripens for 4 weeks, usually with raw milk you're supposed to let it ripen for 60 days. I am going to pasteurize this. Pasteurize it by heating it to 63 degrees Celsius and holding that for 30 minutes. So now we're looking for 63 degrees Celsius. So then I'll keep stirring it so that the milk heats up nicely. Okay, we're at 63 Celsius. So now we'll just maintain that for 30 minutes by keeping it on the steam. While we're waiting for the milk to pasteurize, I'm gonna add my lipase to my half a cup of water here. Let it sit for 30 minutes. And I'm going to add, last time I added 1/8 of a teaspoon for every 2 gallons. This time I'm going to add 1/16 of a teaspoon for my 4.5 gallons, just to give it a little bit of a kick. We'll let that sit for 30 minutes. Okay, so it's pasteurized, and now I need to quickly cool the milk down to 30 degrees Celsius. So that's what we'll be doing. I put it in a pot with cold ice water. Let's see if we can cool it down to 39 Celsius. Okay, so I've cooled the milk down to 39 degrees Celsius, which is where we want to be for Buddha-Käse. So I'll bring it back over to the stove and we'll add our thermophilic culture. Alright, we've got our milk at the target temperature, so I'm going to add my lipase, which will give it a little bit of a sharp flavor, Italian-like flavor. I have it dissolved in half a cup of water. And now I will add the thermophilic culture, all the bacteria that gives the cheese its flavor. And we're going to let it sit on top and rehydrate, and then we'll stir it in. All right, let's cover that up to keep the temperature, and we'll give it 5 minutes. Okay, so I just added the thermophilic culture and I stirred it in for a minute, and now we're gonna let it sit for 40 minutes. All right, our 40 minutes is up. And we'll check our temperature. Okay, we're good at 39. So first we're going to add the calcium chloride. So I have a 1/2 teaspoon and a 1/4 teaspoon and an 1/8 teaspoon. And I have, that's because I have 4.5 gallons in here. Okay, give that a stir. And now we'll add the rennet. And because cream rises to the top, I'm just going to make sure that the cream gets blended in. Now we'll let the rennet do its work for 40 minutes. All right, our 40 minutes is up. And now we're going to see if we have a clean curd break. Let's see. See if it's a nice clean break. And yep, it is. So now I'm going to cut it into 1/2 inch pieces. So Gavin Weber has a really cool curd cutter that has, I've already talked about this before, but you just put it in and you turn it and you're done for the horizontal cuts. Then we have to go cross sideways, I guess you'd say. This is where Gavin's tool comes in handy. Okay, and then we let them rest for 5 minutes. Alrighty, our 5 minutes is up. If you can see, the whey has floated to the top a little bit. Now we're going to stir for 20 minutes, and if there's big curds, we're going to break them up. And I'm heating up water over here to 60 degrees Celsius so that we'll be using that to wash the curds with. And you wash the curds to reduce the acidity. Alright, that's the end of our 20 minutes worth of stirring, and this is what the curds look like now. They're rounder and they're smaller. And now we're going to let it rest for 5 minutes. And I was talking about the oven being on, our stove being on. Last time it was on was when I heated the milk up to be the right temperature for the thermophilic, and after that I turned it off. And it's just been sitting on this double broiler with steam and keeping its heat. That's it. So, all right, see you in 5 minutes. All right, our 5 minutes is up. So our curds have settled down to the bottom. I've heated some water to 60 degrees Celsius. And now we're going to try to remove half of the whey and replace it with this heated water. What I forgot to do was give it a little bit of a stir so it doesn't mat down. There we go. And now we're going to replace it with hot water, 1 cup at a time, until we get to the top. And it should go to 42 degrees Celsius. So it is 42, and now we're going to stir it for 10 minutes. We're just about done stirring. For all you little Miss Muffet fans out there, this is your curds and whey. So now we're going to rest the curds so they sink to the bottom for 10 minutes. Alright, so hopefully the curds have gone to the bottom of the pan, and now we're going to pour the curds into the mold. Oh, good enough, that's okay. I'll just bunch this when you get close to the cheese. So this is our 4.5 gallons of milk. And this is the amount of curds you get out of it. There we go. All right. At this stage, for some other cheeses, I would have salted it, but because we're going to brine this, it doesn't need to be salted until we brine it. Okay, so I'll try to center it. We're going to put it under pressure of 30 minutes and 11 pounds. Here's my 10-pound bag of sugar and my 1-pound bag of jar of peanut butter. There's my 11 pounds, and you can see the whey's dripping. Yay. And I'll just tighten these down so the board won't tip. See you in 30 minutes. The hard part's done. All right, our 30 minutes is up. So now we're going to flip the cheese and increase the weight. We're gonna cross our fingers that the cheesecloth doesn't stick to the cheese. This is a extra fouler, so that the weight gets pushed on the cheese and not on the mold. Not sticking too badly. Good, yay! Let's see if we can do this. There we go. Just trying to get rid of the wrinkles. Now, see if we can get it back in the mold. This goes here. Okay, now we want 24 pounds. All right, and then it gets pressed for 9 hours. See you in 9 hours. All right, it's been, actually it's been 10 and a half hours instead of the 9 hours. And we're gonna take the cheese out of the mold and let it, and brine it. All right, we're going to use an 18% brine. First, I'm going to use a tablespoon of salt, add that to this brine that I've kept in the fridge that I used last time I made the cheese. Okay, not the best, but it'll work. Add some salt to the top of the cheese because it's not in the water. Okay, now we are going to refrigerate this for 9 hours, and at the 4.5 hour mark I'll flip the cheese and then I'll sprinkle it with more salt. It's been 4.5 hours now, so we're going to flip the cheese. Another 4.5 hours, and then we'll take it out to dry. Okay, it's been 9 hours, so we're going to take our cheese out and let it air dry. Get rid of some of the moisture. Keep the bugs away. Started making the cheese yesterday around 3 o'clock, and it's around 4 o'clock the next day. Let it dry for 2 or 3 days, and then it will go in, I'll wax it, and then it will go in the refrigerator for 4 weeks, and you can try it. So that's how I make cheese. The Budakäse is ready to wax, and I'm re-waxing some Swiss cheese that I made, so I thought I'd show you how it all works. First, I'm just going to brush a little on and make sure that some gets in this hole. Now, I'll put the tag back on. So that's how I wax my cheeses. It's not too difficult. It can get slippery. I think the paper towel trick worked. You get paper towel marks on the wax, but at least you don't drop the cheese into the pot. So for the Budakäse, we wait 4 weeks and we'll see how it tastes. Thanks for watching. Bye.